The day my husband Daniel died, I lost more than just the love of my life, I lost my place in the world, at least according to my mother-in-law Eleanor Hamilton. What she didn't know was that while she was plotting to drive me from my home, I was about to become her worst nightmare, her landlord. My name is Olivia Hamilton, formerly Olivia Chen, and this is how I turned my mother-in-law's precious gated community into my own personal chessboard. I met Daniel at a charity auction 5 years ago. He was bidding on rare art pieces for his family's collection. I was there representing my family's investment firm, looking for networking opportunities. When he outbid me for a painting I'd had my eye on, he offered to let me visit it at his home. It was the smoothest pickup line I'd ever heard. Our courtship was a whirlwind. Within 6 months, we were married. Despite his mother's obvious disapproval, Eleanor Hamilton had expected her only son to marry someone from their social circle, not a nouveau riche businesswoman whose family had made their fortune in real estate rather than inheriting it. At least she's not completely poor, I overheard Eleanor telling her friends at our wedding reception. Though one can never be too sure about these self-made types, Daniel found her attitude amusing. Don't let her bother you, he'd say. Mother's stuck in the last century. She still thinks marriage should come with a family crest. We were happy, genuinely happy, for 4 beautiful years. We lived in his mansion in Oakwood Heights, the most exclusive gated community in the city. Daniel continued managing his family's art collection while I expanded my family's real estate holdings. We talked about having children, about growing old together. Then came the accident. Daniel was an experienced pilot, but even experience can't account for catastrophic mechanical failure. The private plane crash left no survivors. I was still in shock when Eleanor arrived at the mansion the day after the funeral, accompanied by her lawyer. This won't do at all, she announced, surveying the changes I'd made to the house over the years. We'll need to restore it to its proper condition. Excuse me? I managed through my grief. Oh, dear, she said with false sympathy. Surely you don't expect to stay here. This is a Hamilton family home. It's been in our family for generations. I'm a Hamilton now, I reminded her, and Daniel left everything to me. Her smile turned cold. About that, there seems to be some confusion about the will. Some documents have surfaced that might change things. The lawyer stepped forward with a folder. These papers indicate that the house was never actually transferred to Daniel's personal ownership. It remains Hamilton family property, under the control of the family trust. Mrs. Eleanor Hamilton, as trustee, has the authority to determine its occupancy. I recognized the game immediately. Having failed to prevent our marriage, Eleanor was trying to erase me from their family history. She wanted me gone, out of their precious house, out of their exclusive neighborhood. What she didn't know was that I'd learned about power plays at my father's knee. While she was plotting with lawyers, I was already 3 moves ahead. I'll need time to review these documents with my own lawyer, I said calmly. Of course, Eleanor smiled. Take all the time you need, until the end of the month. After they left, I made 2 calls. The first was to my father. Dad, remember how you always said Oakwood Heights would be a good investment? I think it's time. The second was to my lawyer, who confirmed what I already suspected. Eleanor's documents were legally questionable at best, but fighting them would be messy, public, and exactly what she wanted. I had a better idea. Over the next week, while Eleanor was busy spreading rumors about my imminent eviction among the neighbors, I put my plan into motion. My father's company, Chen Investment Group, began quietly approaching homeowners in Oakwood Heights with offers they couldn't refuse. The beauty of old money neighborhoods? Many residents are actually cash poor, land rich, and desperate for liquidity. By the end of the 2nd week, we had purchased 6 properties. By the end of the 3rd week, that number had risen to 15. Eleanor was so focused on pushing me out of Daniel's mansion that she never noticed her precious neighborhood was being bought out from under her, one multi-million-dollar property at a time. The day before her deadline for me to leave, I received the call I'd been waiting for. It's done, my father said. We now own 90% of Oakwood Heights, every property except the Hamilton mansion. I smiled, thinking of Eleanor's face when she realized what I'd done. Perfect. Time for phase 2. The first sign that something was wrong came when Eleanor tried to call an emergency meeting of the Oakwood Heights Homeowners Association. She'd been president for 15 years, ruling over the community with an iron fist and arbitrary rules about everything from grass height to acceptable shades of beige for exterior paint. She was in for a surprise. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hamilton, the association's secretary informed her, but the meeting has already been called by the new majority property owner. Eleanor arrived at the community center to find me sitting at the head of the table, in her usual seat. What is the meaning of this? she demanded. Please, take a seat, I smiled. As the representative of Chen Investment Group, which now owns 90% of the properties in Oakwood Heights, I'll be chairing this meeting. The color drained from her face as she looked around the room. The familiar faces of her social circle were gone, replaced by my company's executives and lawyers. This is impossible, she whispered. Actually, it was quite simple. Your neighbors were surprisingly eager to sell, especially those you've terrorized with fines and violations over the years. You can't do this. This is our community. Was your community, I corrected her. Now it's my investment property, and we're making some changes. I handed out new community guidelines. Eleanor's precious rules about acceptable paint colors, holiday decoration restrictions, and lawn maintenance schedules were gone. In their place were reasonable, modern guidelines that actually served the community rather than one woman's sense of superiority. You're destroying everything we've built, Eleanor protested. No, I'm fixing what you broke. Did you know that half your neighbors were one HOA fine away from financial disaster? That your arbitrary rules were making people miserable? She sank into a chair, finally beginning to understand the magnitude of what had happened. Oh, and Eleanor? About the mansion. Her head snapped up. I had my lawyers review those documents you presented. Interesting thing about fraud, it's not just civil, it's criminal. Would you like to explain why Daniel's signature on those trust documents is dated 3 months after his death? The room went silent. Eleanor's lawyer, who had been quietly sweating in the corner, stood up. Mrs. Hamilton, I advise you not to respond to any questions at this time. Wise advice. I agreed, though a bit late. The forensic document examiners have already confirmed the forgery. I'm sure the district attorney will be very interested in their findings. What do you want? Eleanor asked, her voice barely a whisper. Want? I want you to understand exactly what you've lost. Your power over this community, your social standing, your ability to bully and manipulate people. It's all gone. I'll fight you, she threatened weakly. With what? The money you spent on forged documents? The influence you had over neighbors who no longer live here? Face it, Eleanor, you're now living in the only house in Oakwood Heights that you don't control. I stood up, smoothing my dress. Oh, and about those community guidelines? Your house's paint is no longer an approved color. You have 30 days to repaint. I'm thinking perhaps, hot pink? Eleanor's face turned almost purple. You wouldn't dare. Actually, as HOA president, I would. Consider it your first violation, 3 violations, and we can put a lien on your property. I learned that from reading your old rules. As Eleanor stormed out, one of my executives leaned over. Isn't this a bit petty? Petty? I smiled. This is just the beginning. Eleanor spent years making people feel small and unwelcome in their own homes. Now she's going to learn exactly how that feels. Over the next month, Eleanor received violation notices for everything from her mailbox height to her garden gnomes. Each fine came with a personal note, just enforcing the standards you created. But the real stroke of genius came when I started renovating the surrounding properties. Modern designs, vibrant colors, and Eleanor's worst nightmare, affordable housing units that would bring new money into her precious enclave. You're ruining the neighborhood's character, she screamed during one particularly heated confrontation. No, Eleanor, I'm giving it character, real character, not the artificial uniformity you imposed. And the best part? You can't do anything about it. Her social circle, those who hadn't sold their homes to me, began to distance themselves. After all, Eleanor Hamilton was no longer the power player she once was. She was just another resident, living in an increasingly diverse and vibrant community that she hated but couldn't escape. Phase 2 was complete. Her power was gone, her influence shattered, and her precious community was transforming around her. But I wasn't done yet, not even close. The real breaking point for Eleanor came when I announced the renovation of the community center into a public arts space, dedicated to Daniel's memory. The Daniel Hamilton Memorial Arts Center will be open to the public, I announced at the groundbreaking ceremony, featuring rotating exhibitions of emerging artists, free art classes for local children, and community events. Eleanor, who had been forced to attend as the only remaining original resident, looked like she'd swallowed poison. Daniel would have hated this, she hissed during the reception, opening our exclusive community to everyone. I turned to face her, keeping my voice low but firm. Daniel was the one who suggested it. Actually, 3 months before the accident, we discussed turning the community center into an art space. He said Oakwood Heights needed more life, more diversity, more art. You're lying, am I? I pulled out my phone and played a video, Daniel and me, sitting in our garden, discussing plans for the community. His enthusiasm was obvious as he talked about making art accessible to everyone, not just collectors like his family. Eleanor watched, tears forming in her eyes. For the first time, I saw something crack in her perfect facade. "I never knew he wanted this," she whispered. "There's a lot about Daniel you never knew. You were so busy protecting your idea of who he should be, you never saw who he really was." The arts center was just the beginning. I began implementing all the changes Daniel and I had dreamed about. The tennis courts were converted into a public garden. The exclusive clubhouse became a community education center. The gates that had kept the world out were replaced with beautiful archways welcoming people in. Each change was like a personal attack on Eleanor's worldview, but it was also a testament to who Daniel had really been, someone who wanted to use his privilege to help others, not exclude them. One morning, 6 months after the arts center opened, Eleanor appeared at my door. "I want to show you something," she said, holding out a box of old photographs. Inside were pictures of Daniel as a child, playing in the mansion's garden, taking art lessons, beaming with pride at his first painting exhibition. "He always loved art," Eleanor said softly, "not just collecting it like his father and I did, but creating it, sharing it. I thought he'd outgrow it, become more practical, but he never did." I finished for her. "No, he just learned to hide that part of himself from me." She looked up, her eyes wet. "I did that, didn't I? Made him feel he couldn't be himself?" It was the first real moment of self-awareness I'd ever seen from Eleanor Hamilton. "It's not too late," I said carefully. "The arts center needs volunteers for the children's programs." She looked startled. "You'd let me, after everything I did?" "Daniel would have wanted you involved. He never stopped hoping you'd understand what really mattered." 2 weeks later, Eleanor taught her first art class to a group of wide-eyed 8-year-olds. I watched from the doorway as she helped them mix colors and hold brushes properly, sharing the knowledge she'd once reserved for only the right kind of people. The final phase of my revenge wasn't what anyone expected, not even me. Instead of destroying Eleanor completely, I forced her to confront who she was and who she could be. The woman who had tried to evict me was slowly being replaced by someone who actually contributed to the community. 1 year after Daniel's death, Oakwood Heights was unrecognizable. The uniform beige houses were now a rainbow of colors. The silent streets were filled with the sound of children playing. The arts center hosted exhibitions that drew people from across the city. Eleanor still lives in her mansion, but she's no longer trapped by it. She's transformed it into an art school for underprivileged children, using her expertise in fine arts to nurture new talent. "Daniel would have loved this," she told me recently, watching a young girl complete her first painting. "He does love it," I corrected her. "Everything we've built here, it's his legacy, the real legacy, not the one you tried to preserve." Today, the Chen Investment Group owns most of Oakwood Heights, but we manage it as a trust for the community. The property values have actually increased, proving that exclusivity isn't the only path to worth. Eleanor and I will never be close, but we found a way to honor Daniel's memory together. She's learned that true value isn't in controlling others, but in helping them grow. And I've learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't about making someone suffer, it's about making them change. The mansion is still technically disputed property, but it doesn't matter anymore. It's being used exactly as Daniel would have wanted, as a place where art, community, and growth come together. Sometimes, when I walk through the arts center and see Eleanor teaching children about color theory and brush techniques, I think about how differently things could have gone. I could have destroyed her completely, left her with nothing but her bitterness and regret. Instead, I forced her to become a better person, and that was the sweetest revenge of all, because every time she helps a child discover art, every time she opens her home to the community she once tried to shut out, she proves that Daniel was right about what really matters. And that's worth more than any mansion.